According to the Congressional Research Service reports, in 2008, only 56.8% of eligible voters came to vote, and in 2012, that number dropped to 53.2%. It may not seem a small difference, but it also means that, but it does mean that that barely half of eligible voters vote, and that number drops as the years go by. As college students, we are all, if we were born in this country, we are eligible to vote. A vote is our voice, and it's time for our voices to be heard. Back in 2008 and 2012, I was wishing at that time that I was over 18 so that I could vote for Barack Obama, who I thought was the best possible candidate at that time. Now that I am over 18, I am ready to start voting and let my opinions be heard. So voting is important because it allows our voices to be heard. So first I will be talking about why voting is important. First I will be talking about why people don't go vote. Then I will talk about why voting is important, and then I will talk about being more active and more politically involved in voting. So now we move on to my first point. In each presidential election, the turnout stays the same or either drops from the year before. According to Robert Langley, according to the Census Bureau voting survey of 2012, there were many reasons that people didn't go vote. They said they were too busy. They said that they were too busy. They said that they were ill. They said that they didn't have a reliable ride to go there. Or they said that they just didn't want to go because the candidates didn't interest them. So that shows that when people lose interest, they don't care anymore, and they don't try to vote, even though voting affects everyone. So according to Robert Langley, a U.S. government expert, he said that people were too busy or that the process was too long. Even though half of eligible voters go vote and the rest don't, most of those people that don't vote say that voting is important. 91% of people who aren't frequent in voting say that voting is important, and 65% of non-voters that don't go vote at all say that voting is important as well. So why is it that people that don't vote and they don't go express their own opinions, why do they think that voting is important? So next, I've talked about why people don't go vote. Now I will talk about why it is important to vote. So when we go vote, we let our voices be heard, and we allow our opinions to be taken into consideration when we vote. So there are things that go unnoticed in the voting system, and lots of senators, not just in presidential elections, senators and other important people get voted into it, and then they never leave. And because most people don't go vote, they don't know about these issues, so they can't vote to get those people out of it. Voting outcomes affect everyone, which is why that everyone should go vote. According to Zachary Roth, a voting rights expert, he says that in Washington, which is where all those votes are taken into account, they say that 18% of voters don't trust their government to do the right thing with their voting, which is why they don't go vote. So they say their voices don't matter. As they say, the loudest voice is the strongest. So more than half of the people say that voting is important, even though they don't go vote, does that mean that the loudest voice is the people that don't go vote? So now that we've talked about why it's important to vote, we will move on to main point 3, which is how to be more politically involved in our country. So voting is a privilege, not a right, and it's something that should be taken advantage of. We need to stay informed with debates. We need to pay attention to president candidates and their political views. It might be boring to some people and they don't want to do it, but voting again affects everyone. So they need to at least let their opinions be heard and go to the ballot. Voting can be the deciding factor between getting a good candidate and a bad one. In a few voting turnouts, it was only between around 100 to 1,000 votes that made the difference. So if there were people that said that they didn't want to go vote, if the people that said that they didn't want to vote, if the people that didn't go vote had gone to vote, people might have ended up with a better candidate in past years. Voting should be treated with importance and should be given your attention. So now that we have talked about why you should be more active in voting, we move on to our conclusion. In my speech, I talked about why people don't go vote, why is it important to vote, and why we need to get more involved in our elections. So I will move on to my conclusion. As college students, we are allowed to make more of a change in our elections because most of us are paying more attention to our presidential elections. As they say, public officials are our public servants, so if we push for a bit, they can work for us. Thank you.